Hello, beauties. If you can believe it, the time has come again where the seasons are turning. And it's such a magnificent moment. Every time we're gifted with an equinox or a solstice, and we have this moment, this day, and you feel it coming and you feel the aftermath. I would say a week on either side of an equinox or of a solstice, that there's this, if you're paying attention both to the outer world and to your inner world, which of course those two things are entirely woven together. In some ways, you can't even pull them apart. Depends on how you think about it. But it's this really, really beautiful moment for those of us who look to the natural world, to the living world for teachings, for comfort, for our sense of the sacred. And one of the most beautiful things about, looking to nature as the sacred is that it's right there. You don't have to imagine anything. It's all in the material. And the more we can slow ourselves down to feel, to soften, to take in, to be receptive to the material has a way of opening itself up to us, whether we're talking about the movement of a cloud or a leaf falling from the tree or a butterfly passing by. There's a way we can look at that and be hard and see it in one way. And there's a way that we can look at all of those exact same things with a sense of softening, with a sense of like letting go of tension, allowing what's in front of us to be what we're paying attention to fully, completely, not in a story in our own head or, in some trip about where we're going or where we've been, but like right there with it. The material itself has a way of offering us spiritual meaning, guidance, feeling, even if we can't grasp it with the linear way of thinking, such as putting something into words. We can feel the pulse of life. So, with that in mind, I'd love to invite you for this time that we're sitting together to find yourself near a window or even outside. If you have a space where you can, there have been certain times in my life where I crawled out on my roof or sat on a stoop or opened a window. Um, and when you're making that adjustment, you can start it right now. Think of going slower. I think somewhere deep inside, we know that our minds are going too fast and our actions follow. Um, so see if you can just like allow yourself in this space where you have decided to sit with me and to be present. That's the invitation to breathe, to be open, to be soft, to be um, awake and alive to whatever's coming through as you're watching this. And also as you're living through the moment that you're in, which I can't see right now, but I'm also living in a moment that I'm looking out at the sky and at the trees. And yeah, let's just be open to that. And let's let this be the only thing that we're doing right now is breathing and being and tuning in. I want to walk us through some thoughts on fall, some poetry, and a practice. So, as you're slowing yourself down, I want to do what we always do at the beginning of every Wild Woman Project circle, and also rituals at fest, etc. Let this flame represent the wild spirit which burns within each of us. As we awaken our own wild spirit, we awaken the collective spirit. So, our theme today is surrender. Fall's lesson plan. So I was kind of, reflecting every time, right? Every time the season's turning, it's a part of our nature as wild women to take that invitation into, there's when the seasons change, things change, the air quality changes, the colors change depending upon where you live. The feel, the temperature, everything, it starts to change. And when you go through a change like that, it's like this invitation into greater awareness. So I'm looking outside, and have been for the last couple of weeks, and seeing the beginnings of fall, seeing, witnessing these last weeks of summer. And you see, at least where I live here in Western North Carolina in the Blue Ridge Mountains, you see like in late August, some leaves are already starting to blow on the wind. And by now, right, as we're at equinox time, there's a lot of yellow. There's still a ton of green because it's yet to go into the fullness where we're walking through the threshold of autumn right now. And the tree teachers are offering, I mean, for anyone who wants to see it and feel it, an incredible amount of teachings via like transmission, via um, the physical expression of their bodies at that time, at this time. And I really got to thinking about the leaves that are falling now. And if we were always looking as, at everything in nature as a teacher, right? So a single tree. So maybe there's a tree you can set eyes upon at this moment, or that you can remember. And there you have the tree who's rooted and still and strong and centered, who has all of these leaves, all of these leaves, all of these things that it's made, that those leaves have kept the tree alive, it's catching light and feeding the tree. And now it's time to let those leaves go. So the tree grew those leaves in the spring, out of the winter into the spring, grew those leaves, and they came into the fullness, and they lived, and they waved in the breeze and trembled in the winds all summer long. And now this is the time that the tree just like slowly lets all of those sweet things that they grew and that help to keep them alive, and are going to now offer them to the earth, are going to have to let them go. And I wonder about the tree that's like the trunk of the tree. That part, if you think in parts of self, so parts of the tree, then I think about the leaves themselves. That's also part of the tree. And to allow our minds to just linger on what's happening, just to breathe in, to notice, to watch as the wind takes new trees or new leaves, whoosh, And we'll watch it all autumn long, that the trees, the leaves will slowly turn yellow, and then they might turn orange, they might turn red. Depends, it depends on the tree, it depends on where it's growing, and it's going to eventually fall. And I just, right when I said that, saw leaves falling from a tree. I think it's important when we're contemplating these things to not get too caught in the linear thinking, but rather just allow the observation and the taking in of what's happening to work on us, to have more of a poet's heart or a mystic's heart about it, rather than getting so caught up in the scientific explanation for what is happening, which is cool too. That's super cool. But we're tuning into something else here. And so I was just thinking about this falling, this surrendering of the leaves, this offering that the trees are making to the earth. Recently in Wild Woman Underground, we had a circle on Mary Oliver's birthday. I think it would have been her 89th birthday. And she's the great American poet, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And we call her the patron saint of wild women. She was known as the wandering poet. She'd walk around the woods or the shoreline, and she'd always have a notepad, and she'd write her poetry. Even in certain leaner years, she would also be foraging for food. And anywho, we were having this circle, and one of my sister friends reminded us all of this poem that I'll read you in a moment. And it's really been working on me in the couple weeks since her birthday. And I think it's a really great opening into this topic of surrender. It's called In Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes, to let it go, to let it go. There's something especially in that last piece of those three things. To live in this world, you must have, that you love something, that you hold it against your bones, that you give yourself to it, you take it in, you hold it close. And then when the time comes, you let it go. You let it go. And so if you want, this idea can be a contemplation that you carry throughout the season of fall. This idea, particularly in the last part, of the three things? What is it to let it go? What is it? It makes me think. I studied yoga for a number of years, and in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the yamas, one of the yamas is aparigraha. And that's translated to like non-clinging, non-possessiveness, non-greed, non-attachment is the one that makes best sense to my brain, that translation. Non-attachment. It's like the anti-clinging to things. And it's like, it seems to me to be part of that awareness of knowing. It's like, how do you know? Like when Mary Oliver says, and when the time comes to let it go, she repeats, to let it go. And I feel like it's part of the skillfulness in life to know that moment when it's actually time to let something go. So as we begin the season, I'm contemplating, and I invite you to contemplate if it's interesting to you. What is it in your life that it's time to let go of, like the trees are about to release or are already in the process of releasing their leaves? What are those leaves for you? And it could be any number of kinds of things. It can be inner world things, it can be outer world things. And again, those are linked together, you know. um but it could be a habit. That could be like something that you do a lot, and and inside your heart you have already got the message probably several times that it's almost time to let it go, and it's almost time to let that go, and it's almost time. And maybe it's that time, only to let a habit go. It could be a thought pattern. It can be a belief that has expired, that at some time made sense for how you understood the world and your experiences. But as you have gathered more years, as Dr. Estes would say, as you have gathered more years, you've seen maybe a shift with that. I don't think that's true anymore. That thing that I was so certain about, or that thing I was taught. Actually, I don't think that's true. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the leaf you're letting go. And it just might be something like a project or a certain relationship of some kind where you're going to have to surrender it. And I think it's important to know that, like, I think sometimes we get freaked out, or maybe it's just me. We get freaked out about like the idea of letting something go, because it feels like, if you think in extremes, like that's extinguished, like that's dead. And that's not necessarily true. I don't think that's true at all, actually. If you think about what the leaves are doing, the leaves are dropping from the tree. The tree is offering it to the earth. It falls down onto the ground and becomes part of something else eventually. Through rain and maybe steps and time, those leaves become part of the soil, become part of something else. So it's not dead, it's transforming. So I think sometimes when we think about like letting things go, laying them down, surrendering something, to say, I'm not going to hold this as tightly, this belief, this habit, this relationship, this project, whatever it is. I'm not going to hold it like this, like a wide-eyed and tense and, hard, but rather I'm going to soften and I'm going to surrender it. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to offer it so that it can turn into something else. It's useless and futile. And frankly, it can be very painful when we hold on to something way past the time where our heart has told us to let it go. And we have a habit and we do it again 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 and we do it again. It's like at what point do we say this is hurting? At what point do we lay it down? And I think a lot of us have, control issues. Again, maybe it's just me. But like I'm going to hold on, I'm going to decide and I'm going to lay down and it's like to surrender, to do what the trees are doing with the leaves, to surrender, to let go, to take that, like to take something that they love, as Mary Oliver said, what'd she say? It's so beautiful to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends upon it. It's like the tree holding that in that phase where it's summertime and the tree is holding on to those leaves. And those leaves are part of the tree, and it's the symbiotic relationships keeping the tree. The tree's life depends upon it, and then to let it go, to decide to let it go, so I think some of these things like habits and patterns and relationships and projects and whatever it is we are pondering letting go, at some point we held it so tightly, like our whole life depended upon it, and maybe it did. And then it is a mark of wisdom and maturity and self-awareness to know it's time for the release. It's time for the offering it into the mystery. It's time for, that's a trust fall into the universe to say, I now release something that my life once depended upon. That's a trust fall into the universe. It takes a tremendous amount of, I think what some people would call faith. I prefer trust, just trust. Trust that life has you, that you're cycling just like the trees are cycling. And that when your message comes in, and I think it's important that the message is not coming in a moment of reactivity and anger, but rather the message comes in a peaceful moment, which is why it's so important for us to soften up sometimes and slow down and make those moments for these things to happen. It's why circle space exists. Calm moments where we can actually have clarity, where we're not in a constant state of reactivity. So anyways, when we're in that state and we get that message and it comes through and it's clear, to let that go, it takes a tremendous amount of trust in life. And only you know how much trust you have in life. I feel like for me, it's an ongoing journey. And as I get older, I get more trusting. It has become a little easier to let go and to surrender a little easier. It's still an active practice. So I lay at your feet these questions, which you can walk with and dance with, which is, what am I surrendering? And what does surrendering ask of me? Write those down. What am I surrendering? And what does surrendering ask of me? You can make a little list in your journal or on a piece of scratch paper somewhere. And you can even just put the question somewhere. I have little notes for myself all over this place. Remind yourself what you're thinking about, and I'd love to give you a journaling practice for the equinox and for the autumn season. So sometime around the equinox would be great, or any time in autumn, to sit down and to make a list. Lists are powerful. Lists are extremely powerful. So this is just for your eyes. You don't have to share it with anyone else. What am I ready to surrender? And make a list of 3 or 5 things. What am I ready to surrender? Sometimes I feel like we're in between those phases of holding something dear and it's keeping us alive, and knowing that something's shifting and there's an end in sight, but maybe it's not here yet. Maybe you're not ready to let it go yet, but you can. I think the psyche starts to prepare itself. It goes through phases. So really ask yourself, what are you actually in a place where you're like, man, this has come up for me several times. I have got this hit. I've got this message many times, and I'm actually ready. Write 3 or 5 things down. And then after you do that, set a timer or not. If you have space, go outside for a bit. Whether you just stand out on your front stoop or your front porch, or whatever outside space that you have, or whether you go on a walk, it can be a long walk or a short walk, but pay attention to the trees and just kind of hold this contemplation in your heart, but not in the mind, just in your heart. There's a difference. Let your mind just pay attention to what you see and to what you feel and what you sense. Just pay really good attention to the natural world, and do this for a minimum of 5 minutes. Okay. And then come back inside to your list. Look at it again through new eyes. Look at your list and circle just one thing, just one, and make that your surrender of the season. Make that your leaf that you're going to surrender at some point in the autumn. And throughout autumn, you can let the process unfold. You can allow the trees in the natural world to inspire your process. You can do simple or elaborate rituals. You can speak your own prayers. The simpler, the better. You can write about it. You can paint about it. You can dance about it. You can make something beautiful out of the process. The leaves do this amazing thing where they turn this beautiful, radiant color, and then they fall. I wonder if there's something like that you can do with whatever this one thing is that you're going to surrender this fall, that you're going to offer back into the great mystery of life so that it can become something else. And you'll both be transformed in the process. And don't underestimate your strength. Don't underestimate the way you too, like the tree has a trunk, are a pillar of light and wisdom and resilience, made up of your ancestors and star stuff Don't underestimate yourself. Surrender. Fall's lesson plan. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope that it made a little doorway for you and that you can continue to walk through. Just know that sometimes doorways lead to more doorways. Um, yeah, and I'm looking forward to a beautiful fall season. So, you may or may not know that we have fall circle leader training coming up. It starts on November 4th. And registration will open up in October. And in the meantime, I'll start talking about it more and more and giving you all the details. But the skinny is it's the reason the Wild Woman Project exists. All I ever wanted to do way back when I started this wild thing was to help women create the kind of magic I had experienced in women's circles. And transformation, change, it was life changing, And I thought, gosh, I think we can teach other people how to do this. And I started this program 13 years ago. And it's 13 years of life. And, I keep thinking I am the most proud I have ever been of this program. It's so good. And I don't say that in a boastful way. I say that I believe in this thing. It's powerful. It has a life of its own. So it's 7 weeks. It's all online. Women from all over the world join. And we always have an intergenerational mix, which is really sweet, and multicultural mix. And we all come together around, we see nature as the teacher. We have a call towards sacred space, especially with other women, but not necessarily exclusively, that we're all here called into the wild feminine, that we are interested in tools like meditation and conscious sharing and journaling and ritual. So I really believe that any woman who feels a call to facilitate a circle can. And this program is really built to give you both the tools and to give you an immersion into the magic of circle. It's incredible. And yeah, we have so many alumni at this point. I'll be sharing their stories, and you can also read them on our website. But yeah, if you're interested in joining that, I recommend going to the link below this video and getting on the priority list. If you get on the priority list, you're going to be the first to know when I start really communicating about it in the next couple of weeks. Our detailed schedule, our scholarship opportunities, tuition options, like what are we going to explore? Why are we going to explore it? We're going to delve into women's circles. So you'll feel really, prepared, like what you're getting yourself into. And spoiler alert, you're getting yourself into a very magical fall. It's been called life-changing many, many, many times, which it certainly changed my life. So I agree. And, always on the new moon, there are Wild Woman Project circles happening all over the world. You can find a link to find one near you under this video. And for those who can't make it to a circle or simply want to tune in on the specific new moons, I facilitate a new moon meditation adventure. And the next one will be October 2nd. It will be the second in a year-long exploration of a theme called Build Altars Everywhere. So please join us for any or all of these things if you feel called. And again, thank you so much for watching. And I will be surrendering with you, and we will be surrendering with the trees. And I just want to close with these last couple of lines from this poem. Thank you, Mary Oliver, for closing us out. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes, to let it go, to let it go. Happy fall, babes.